Old school RuneScape has some really excellent quests, with maybe the best writing in any MMO. Personally, I think that Desert Treasure 2 and the Vampire storyline are some of the real highlights, even though Maya Ditch is a complete nightmare to navigate. However, not all the quests are great, or even good. Many of them are over 20 years old now, and it really shows, with some frustrating mechanics, buggy code, and constantly using alcohol to solve all problems. And if you dig around on the internet a bit, you can find plenty of opinions of what the worst quests in old school RuneScape are. But there's a few quests that get mentioned time and time again in these discussions. Now, I think Ratcatchers deserves the top spot because of unnecessary stealth mechanics. But a lot of the quests that get mentioned are the ones that I need to get done before I can even start Song of the Elves. So stick around and see just how frustrated I can get trying to complete some of RuneScape's worst quests. Welcome back to Xtreme Onechunk Iron Man, Prifddinas edition, the prequel, where I am attempting to complete the Grandmaster quest Song of the Elves at the lowest possible level, with no unnecessary quests, and avoiding all collection logs, all so I can start my Xtreme Onechunk journey in Prifddinas as fresh as possible. Last time on Prifddinas, I spent most of my money getting to 70 construction, and I started doing farming contracts in the farming guild in an attempt to make a dent in the herb lore grind. The plan for this episode is to complete all 9 remaining quests that I need for Song of the Elves. But before I can get started, I want to train a few skills to get my hands on some upgrades and make these quests a little bit easier. I need to get 60 ranged, as it's required for Mourning's End Part 1, and there are also several parts of these quests that will require me to use bows, so I want to get my ranged into the high 50s to make things as smooth as possible. And, as I discussed back in episode 2, I want to use Soul Wars and Pest Control to train my ranged from 30 to 60. So my first goal is to get to 40 combat. My current stats only get me to 33 combat, so I just need to get another 7 combat levels from somewhere. And I'm going to start off with Prayer. Although it is possible to start Song of the Elves at level 18 Prayer, it's not realistic to beat the boss fights at this level. As many people have pointed out in the comments, I'm going to need protection from missiles to fight Fragment of Seren, and protection from melee to fight Assault. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to get to 43 Prayer. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, but it does, sadly, add another 25 to our minimum total level. There aren't too many options for training Prayer without combat. Luckily, there is one that has no requirements and I actually quite like. Picking up big bones in the boneyard and taking them to the Chaos Altar. I even did this a few years ago to get overheads on my fresh Iron Man, but I imagine that Valamore has introduced a much more fun and efficient way to unlock overheads. I did have a few clips of me getting PK'd here, even at such a low combat level, but the Wilderness player alarm makes them horrible to watch, so I'll skip straight to level 43 Prayer. This level bumps me up to 36 combat, so still a few more levels to go. I still need some more magic levels to unlock the Wizard's Guild, but I don't want to lock myself out of teleports and any other useful spells yet, so for now I'm just going to train up to level 60 by superheating Iron, getting me to 39 combat. And finally, to get that last level, I can train my defense up to 12. So far, I have mostly been doing this passively, with XP lamps from random events, but I can speed this up by spending a few hours in my games room. This time, I've got attack and strength potions for a little more XP per hour. When you hit the attack zone, little rocks fall off it, and not only can those rocks damage you, they can actually kill you. Luckily, when you die in your house, you respawn outside with all your gear. But building a stone in your house to train your attack, and then dying because parts of that stone hit you in the face, is really Darwin Awards levels of stupidity. After another couple of hours of that, I get to 12 defense and finally hit my 40 combat goal. So now I can take a shot at pest control and soul wars. Let's start off with pest control. And at 40 combat, I can only join the beginner boat, which will get me 3 reward points per victory. So me and a group of other low-level players get on this boat to rush the pest control island and defend the Void Knights from the invading creatures. Usually people do this by attacking the pests and the portals that they spawn through. However, that would get me unwanted hit points experience, so I need to help in other ways. What I can do is chop logs and then use them to fix barricades and doors, getting me crafting XP along the way. I currently have no plans to level my crafting up to level 24, so I can stay here for quite a long time if I think it's good. So here's my average game experience as a pest control leech.
Hey, Prifddinas, help kill these elephant monsters.
I need to repair this barricade.
I don't think that's going to help anyone.
It must be important. Why else is it here?
No one has ever gone over there before.
Help me, I'm being attacked.
Idiot.
At least, that's what I imagine they're thinking. I did eventually work out a strategy to allow me to actually help. And I have dubbed it the Panic at the Disco method. So yeah, no one in the beginner games wants to close any of the doors. And let me read directly from the strategy section on the wiki. The best strategy is to make sure the gates stay closed as the players run through or past them. The best strategy. So it may actually have been useful. Not sure it actually was, but I wanted to feel like I was contributing. Because the beginner boat regularly loses games. Probably because there are other people like me there who did practically nothing. And on top of that, games often took quite a long time to start because there weren't enough players. To be honest, I'm not really sure why anyone is doing the beginner boat. The points are terrible. You can get up to 8 points per veteran game if you've done the hard combat achievements. So I wouldn't even consider coming here to grind out points if I wasn't getting, say, at least 6 points a game. And in my experience of playing on other accounts, the veteran boat doesn't often lose games. As the games were so slow, and I wasn't really helping to win the games, I decided to leave after a couple of hours with only 75 points. Which is only worth around 5k ranged XP, or I can get a little herb or a smithing XP from the herb or mineral packs if I need it later on. But for now, it's time to try out Soul Wars. And for this minigame, I'm not going to grief other people's games, as I can play it all on my own, with the Dolo method. Which is where there's only one player on each team, and I play both of them. Let's go through a game looks like now. I'll start with Prifddinas, who's getting the points. The first thing this account has to do is capture all of the objectives. So start with the closest graveyard, then move over to the obelisk, and then finally moves to the second graveyard. And then, with all 3 objectives captured, I wait at the bottom of this ramp for the other account to finish what it's doing and meet me here. The second account, which will get no points, heads straight to the ghosts in the middle and starts killing them for soul fragments. I usually get about 30. Now, the gear I've got for doing this isn't ideal. A blowpipe would be really good, but I'm pretty dry on Zora on this account, and my other account, which isn't an iron, has terrible stats. So this is what we've got. Once I collect all the fragments, I lower my HP with the locator orb or a rock cake. Then I head over to where Prifddinas is, or where Prifddinas does the final point of damage and picks up the soul fragments, and then takes them to the obelisk to hand in. And this is why I had to unequip all my gear. It's usually a little bit quicker. Finally, once the soul fragments have been handed in, the second account leaves the game through the portal here, and the game will end with Prifddinas being the victor and will get around 15 Zeal. Each game takes about 2 to 3 minutes, so I think I can get around 300 Zeal an hour doing this. And I think this is actually one of the best methods for Zeal per hour. So it's nice to be doing something actually efficient on this account for once. Although I'm pretty sure it's far from max efficiency with the gear that I have access to. The exchange rate for Zeal into XP changes based on several level brackets. All in all, I'm going to need about 1500 Zeal to get to level 55, which is where I'm going to stop for now until I'm ready to start Mourning's End Part 1. And only 5 hours to get to level 55 feels like a breeze when I was getting 1500 XP an hour at the Hoop and Stick game. Unfortunately, I can't really buy anything else with the Zeal points. The Spoils of War have loads of good resources, for example coal and metal ore that I could use for smithing, and both Renar and Snapdragon seeds, but there's a chance of getting a pet, and I'm not willing to risk getting another item on the collection log. The only other thing that I can spend Zeal on is to get more blighted supplies, but I think it's quite unlikely that I'm going to be running out anytime soon. And the final upgrade before I get started with these quests, I will get from leveling Hunter again, to get the next tier of Implings, the Magpie Imp, as they have a few extra items that would be really helpful. There are two in particular that I'm looking for to help me with quests, which is Amulets of Power and Rings of Recoil. I mostly want the Rings of Recoil so I can avoid combat XP as much as possible. So I quickly got to 65 Hunter with Red Salamanders, and then I went and caught a few Magpie Implings, and it didn't take too long to get the items that I needed. Now it's finally time for some actual quests, and I'll start with big chompy bird hunting. There are two quick requirements that I still need before I can do the quest. One is 5 fletching, which I got by making some headless arrows with some logs and feathers I had lying around in the bank. And the second is that I need wolf bones. And unfortunately, the only way you can get wolf bones is to kill wolves. Most wolves around Gillinor are quite high level, for me at least. Except the wolves in the Stronghold of Security, which for some reason are a much lower level and only have 10 HP, which makes them the perfect monster to kill with Rings of Recoil. I just got 5 bones to start with, as it took quite a long time, and I'm just going to hope that I won't need to go back for more. Big chompy bird hunting is a fine quest. You have to make some special arrows with wolf bones, then you inflate a frog to lure a chompy out, and you kill it with the special arrows and a special bow. This is one of the reasons I wanted to train my ranged up, to make sure that I could kill the chompy before I ran out of arrows. And then, once you've done all of that, you cook the chompy for routes, and that's it. Why is this related to the elf storyline? Well, we'll see later on, but let me warn you now, it's very stupid. Big chompy bird hunting done. And although it isn't a bad quest, it does unlock one of the worst activities in the game, chompy hunting, where you have to kill 1,000 of these things if you want to do the Western Provenance's diary. And if there was a tier list for the quests that I have to do, I would rank this one as forgettable. Next, on to Biohazard, the follow-up to Plague City, where we rescued Elena from West Ardoyne, which is locked down because of the plague. Now, Elena wants us to go and get a plague sample so we can test it and try and cure the plague. We don't seem to be taking this plague very seriously. We rescue people who could have been infected, we come and go as we please, but I guess in the end it doesn't really matter, as it's all fake anyway. And the king tells us it's for the greater good, and he wouldn't lie to us, right? The best part of this quest is I get to use my Rings of Recoil to kill something else. So this is another quest for the forgettable tier. Time for Sheep Herder, and now we're talking with one of the more memorable quests, as it's one of the top runners for worst quests in RuneScape. I've done this quest a few times now, and I've had mixed levels of success, but last time it was very smooth and I had no issues, so I'm sure it will be fine. This little corner, I've been stuck in it before. I hope it doesn't go all the way back. Right, stuck in another corner. Why is it like this? And it went all the way back to the start. I remember now, if you just go a little bit too far, You can use the fence. You little shit, where are you going? Well, that's one done. Why do they keep turning around? I got this one stuck again, but it just put itself in the enclosure, so that was nice. Perfect execution for number 3. I'm sure this is the high-level gameplay that you guys come here expecting. Just in case you play with sounds off, this is the constant noise you get during this quest. And that's all 4. 2 of them went in without complaint. I was maybe a little bit overconfident going into this, but I'm going to call it a win because it's done. This quest sucks. It's going to go in the worst quests in RuneScape tier. The mechanics are bad. The rewards are bad. It sounds bad. But it took me less than 10 minutes to complete, so it probably can't be the actual worst quest in RuneScape. But it's close. Making history is going to be the last really short quest I have to do. I think it's about saving the outpost from being destroyed by the king, but I'm not really sure. You end up walking around the world and talking to a few people that don't really seem to have any connection to the rest of the Elf storyline, but maybe I should have just paid more attention. I'm still kind of annoyed by this quest, as the rest of the Song of the Elves pre-quests are all nicely contained in a smallish area. But for making history, you have to visit Relica and Port Phantasmus, which are way out of the way. And this quest alone is the reason that I don't think any Xtreme Onechunk account will ever unlock Priff the regular way. The main challenge of this quest for me was the 24 crafting to get a Sapphire Amulet. I failed to get the crafting I needed from pest control, so I quickly got 24 crafting by spinning some flax, and a few sapphire rings so I could make some more rings of recoil. And then I bought the gems that I needed from the Alcarid gem store and made 2 sapphire amulets, one for the quest and one so I can have an amulet of magic. There's also a +1 crafting boost available, so I only got to 23 crafting for now, and I boosted up to level 24 by using a poison chalice that you can get from this dwarf here, Stankers. I for the life of me can't work out why a poison chalice would boost your crafting, but I'm not complaining. Making history firmly goes in the forgettable tier of quests. Now it's time to get started on some of the longer quests. Underground Pass is a classic, and I really like it, but it also gets mentioned in discussions of the worst quests in Old School. The king has tasked me with finding a passage through the mountains so he can defeat his evil brother. In the process, we lose our minds a little bit. We do some evil stuff, like killing unicorns and paladins, and actually lose our minds as players, as so many of the obstacles are really frustrating. But as I already have 63 agility, I don't think it's going to be as bad for me as it is for many others. The first real challenge for me of this quest was getting over this grid. It's got a different path across for everyone. And when you take a wrong step, you fall into the pit and take 15 damage. 15 damage kills me, as I still have 10 HP. This is just one of the many reasons that I didn't make this account a hardcore. So each time I try a different path, inevitably I die, and then I run back and try a different path until I get across. I think you can do something fancy here with some kind of stool with a prayer and then tick the damage, but I wasn't able to do it. I don't really understand how it works. And the only time I've seen someone use it is in an old Rendy video, and I have no idea if you can still do it. But it doesn't take that long for me to resupply at the bank and run back. And because of the nature of this account, I'm way more willing to put up with this kind of bullshit. If I was playing a regular account, I would probably be really annoyed at having to run back here 4 times. So I was able to just brute force it, Didn't really take that long, but it wasn't the ideal strategy. Next was killing these paladins. They have slightly too much health for me to realistically kill them with rings of recoil, so I took them down with ranged. It was only after I killed them that I saw their stats. They are extremely tanky for their level, and it would have been much more sensible to kill them with magic. And it was during this fight when I inevitably got level 11 hit points. It's very sad, but there's only so much experience that I can avoid. The only other issue is that there are some big demons that I have to kill, and I was hoping to avoid the experience of killing them and using an ult to venom them, but as it turns out they are only visible before you finish the quest, so I had to get out my bow and kill them myself. Yet another reason that I train ranged, so it didn't take quite so long to kill them. Here's a quick clip from my ult, just watching Prifddinas fire a bow at nothing. All in all, I killed 3 demons, a spider, and set a grave on fire. And I can now take on the final fight of this quest, throwing a doll into a well. I remember the first time I did this quest, and I was ready for a big epic fight, but no, it's just super anticlimactic. Quest done, and I've unlocked the best weapon that I'm going to be able to use for the whole prequel, Ivan's Staff. It's such a good low-level magic weapon. It's able to hit 25s, and I think it's better than any other magic weapon, all the way up to 81 magic. I think Underground Pass deserves the rank of Unlock Something Good in my tier list. Before I get on with the next quest, I want to get my thieving goal of 50 out of the way, as it allows me to skip one of the more annoying parts of the Underground Pass. So the plan is to pickpocket master farmers to see if I can get some herb seeds out of them on my way to 50. I stepped away from my computer for 1 second, and I almost missed a sandwich lady. It's less exciting than most random events, as I really want those lamps to get my defense levels up, but it's always worth to see what she has for you anyway. Oh, it's a baguette. Could it be? Oh shit, it is. What an unbelievable spoon. And it's my first stale baguette on any account ever. Can I keep it? Please? So, a common question I get is, am I going to drop my bank when I get to Priff? And yes, 100%. I will be dropping everything. I want to start off the same as every other Onechunk account, with a completely empty inventory and bank. Now, I was going to ask for people to comment if I should keep the random event gear or just drop it all with the rest of my bank when I get to Priff, as there is an argument to keep it, as it's not really linked to any chunk. But I've changed my mind, and I've decided that it all needs to go, as those are the rules that I signed up for. And I think it might be a little fun to watch a stale baguette despawn on the ground. Back to thieving, 2 health left, and 1 pickpocket to go before level 50, so obviously I'm going to chance it, and there it is, level 50, as high as I'm going to train until I get to Priff. The 3 remaining levels I get will come from quest rewards. I got a few herb seeds from this. Without the rogue's outfit, pickpocketing master farmers isn't a particularly great way of getting herb seeds, but it's at least a little bit less time in Puro. On to our next quest. And with Regicide, we finally step foot in the Elf lands. Gonna spend a lot of time here, and before I do any other part of the quest, I want to visit Priff for the first time. Even if they won't let me in. And I can even visit the chunk that I'm planning to start in, all 30 or so tiles I currently have access to. If I just turn on the region locker GPU, we can see what it's going to look like when I get here. But for now, it would be just a little bit annoying to keep this on. It doesn't feel like it's going to be too long before I come back here and don't leave for a very long time, but it's still going to be quite a long grind to unlock Priff. For this quest, it might look like the guard I have to fight is going to be the hardest part, but it's actually going to be the leaf traps in the forest. Similar to the ones in the Underground Pass, when I fail them, they do 15 damage to me, and I still only have 11 HP, so there's nothing that I could do to survive. But this time, instead of learning my path through the grid, it's just a random skill check. And I have to run all the way back through the underground pass and redo any of the leaf traps that I've previously succeeded. And after I failed the first one, I'm a bit worried about the number of times I'm going to have to run back through the underground pass, as I need to cross around 10 of them. However, as it turns out, I am pretty good at leaf traps. The wiki doesn't list a failure rate for these traps, and I have no idea how lucky I actually got, but I never failed another leaf trap during this quest. Which was such a relief, because it takes so long to get back here, and in the end I only had to go back through the underground pass once, as the quest made me. However, the Turret Guard was still annoying. Like the Paladins, I should have used Mage to kill it, but it was too late when I got here. He also has an XP multiplier, which although great for most people, I really didn't appreciate. And it took so long for me to kill him that he despawned at like 1 health, meaning that I had to fight him twice. And during these fights, I got level 12 and 13 hit points, which again, is pretty disappointing. However, in this part of the forest, there are also wire traps to go alongside the leaf traps. And these at least give me a reason to be happy about these extra hit points levels. If you fail them, they hit you for 10 and poison you, so at least they don't kill me anymore, and I can just drink an anti-poison to heal back up. And it's very easy for me to get anti-poisons on this account. I either buy them from the Crownja shop, or I can pick them up outside the observatory. Then I used a catapult to kill the evil king, and the quest was complete. Regicide goes into the wonder why you play this game tier. The forest is annoying to traverse, and so is the underground pass. But at least we now have a better way of getting to the Elflands in the form of charter ships. And at the end of the quest, an elf appears and tells us that we've been deceived again, and we helped the bad guys, a common theme in RuneScape quests. The king we assassinated seemed like a terrible king, so I don't feel that bad about it. And with no attempts to learn from our mistakes, it's time to blindly trust someone else and get started with Roving Elves. Roving Elves is a super short quest, but was surprisingly difficult for me to complete. The main reason for this is you have to kill a Moss Guardian with no weapons. And these things are quite high level, and they hit through prayer with a max hit of 14. And the skeletons wandering around the same area as them make flinching them quite annoying. I did get hit for a 14 a couple of times, but I managed to get it done with some help from blighted anglerfish. But I mostly went for the strategy of hoping they didn't get any max hits. You may have noticed that I'm doing all this combat on PvP worlds, like I said I would when I got the blighted supplies. And some fights, like these Moss Guardians, have been in instance areas where I don't have to worry about other players. However, when I am out in the open on PvP worlds, I have not seen anyone in my PvP bracket, and I'm sure of this because I have not seen anyone at all. Which is good, because I've teleported back to Ardi a couple of times with way too much risk. Anyway, Roving Elves complete. I would give this crest a forgettable tier, but the Crystal Shield and Crystal Bow are far too iconic, even though I won't be wielding them until I get to Priff. So, into the unlock something good tier it goes. 2 quests left to go, and the finish line is in sight. So it's time to get started with Mourning's End Part 1. I still have 1 requirement left for this quest, which is to get to 60 ranged, so back into Soul Wars I went for the remaining Zeal to get to level 60. Getting the exact amount of Zeal required is very satisfying, leaving me with 0 in the bank if I ever get back here. And now it's time to properly start the quest. I need to get a Mourner's outfit so I can sneak into their headquarters. This fight could be quite annoying, as the Mourners you have to kill drain your stats extremely low. I have, however, cleverly played around this by having terrible stats to start with. Now I have the outfit, I can sneak into the headquarters and start gaining their trust by doing a few chores. This quest is just really stupid. I need to re-dye the wool of the sheep that I killed in Sheep Herder to make people believe in the plague. But I need to do it subtly. No one can see me doing it, otherwise they'll know it's a hoax. So we start off with some light torture of a gnome so we can learn how to do it. Then I make a bazooka with magic logs supplied by nature implings that fires frogs full of coloured dye. And then I use that to subtly dye the sheep. Let's see how subtle this actually is. I'm in full mourner's garb, holding a bazooka, which I'm pretty sure is not a common item in Gillinor, and I look like I'm cosplaying a worm. You know, these guys from the 90s. I'm sure I will need to find somewhere strategic and subtle to use it from. Never mind, I'm just going to stand here next to them and fire it. Maybe I'm just mad that I had to get 60 ranged and spend so long doing hoop and stick and soul wars just for this. But couldn't I have just got some kind of blue, yellow and green alcoholic drink and solved this the way I solve every other problem, with the application of alcohol? After that, the next goal is to poison the West Ardy food supplies. They're already falsely imprisoned, and now we're going to poison them. I hope this is all going to be worth it, because I'm doing some pretty evil stuff here. Quest done, and the rewards get me to my goal of thieving level and hit points. Hopefully I won't get too many more hit points levels from the remaining quests. This quest is going into the worst quests in RuneScape tier, but I think my hatred of this quest is slightly more personal than most other people's, and it's probably just pretty forgettable. And here we are at the final pre-quest for Song of the Elves, Mourning's End Part 2. This quest has some annoying agility obstacles in it, so I want to get my agility as high as I possibly can without getting to my goal. And hopefully it will make the quest a little bit less painful. So I'm finally going to hand in the Wieldy agility tokens that I got in episode 1 for a big XP drop. And then back to Brimhaven to get to level 69 for a little bit more Herblore XP. I'm getting just enough XP that the rewards from this quest won't take me over level 70. And we're ready to start. This quest is often near the top, if not at the top, of people's worst quested RuneScape lists. And there are a few good reasons for that. The first is that most of this quest takes part in the Temple of Light, where you have to run around the maze and direct this coloured light beam to open doors. Now, I'm the first to admit that I have no idea how this works, or how you're supposed to work it out. I just follow the guides. But there are two extra reasons why this part of the quest is so annoying. The first is that ghosts constantly attack you, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And secondly, is you have to have a lot of inventory spaces spare for all of the pieces of the puzzle. So you often run out of supplies from the ghosts attacking you, and you have to come back and do several trips. This quest is the reason that I've been stocking up on staminas from Jekyll and Hyde events, and they should make it a little bit more fun. My other attempt to make this a little bit more fun is to fill my inventory with energy potions, and I'll just drop the extras if I need more space for puzzle pieces. However, these aren't the worst things about this quest. And I think the biggest one that people remember is this one agility obstacle. You need over 90 agility to stop failing it. Each handhold is its own skill check, and you have to pass 8 checks in a row to get to the other side. So, at level 69, I have an 80% chance of passing each check and around a 20% chance to get all the way to the other side. But if you come here at the minimum level of 56, then you have a 71% chance of passing each check, which plummets your chance of getting to the other side all the way down to 6%. So the expected number of attempts at level 56 is 14. Here's a nice graph showing the success chance at each level. As you can see, your success rate really starts to climb when you get to around 70 agility. So if you can force yourself to train agility, then getting to say 75 agility before this quest would mean you have a 30% success rate on this obstacle, and you may come away from this quest without hating it. And when you do fail, you take some damage, and the large amount of ghosts at the bottom of the pit will continue to attack you. And then the run back to the start of the obstacle is just long enough to induce rage. And you have to do it on 2 separate occasions. I think I failed this around 10 times in total, maybe a little bit more. So I didn't even get particularly unlucky, and it was still extremely annoying. And then, finally, you think you're done. The light puzzle is complete. But you need to get into the Death Altar. And this dwarf is willing to give you a Death Talisman to get in. But before he'll give it to you, you need to complete his shopping list of 50 unique items. I think this is just an Iron Man problem, as you can just buy one off the GE if you're a main, but people do not like this part of the quest either. I think it would be better if you could get it all in one inventory, but requiring 50 items means you have to come back at least twice. Most of the things on this list are super easy, and you can either buy them or just pick them up off the ground. The only hard item for me was the book. He will ask you to get one of 3 at random. 2 of them are pretty easy to get, and you just pick them up off the ground. The one that I needed was a little bit more difficult to get, as it was located at the barrows. Getting to the barrows isn't too difficult, you mostly just have to run through this swamp. Normally you run through this gate here, but you need to start Nature Spirit in order to go through. And I don't want to start the quest. Even if I can't think of a way for Prifddinas to get back here without being forced to start the quest, I still don't want to start it. But a little Mauritania fun fact for you, this area isn't actually locked behind the quest, just the ability to use the gate. And if you really want to go to the barrows without using this gate, you can sneak through the swamp. I think it would be easiest to show you the way on a map. So you usually take this path, at least for your first trip to the barrows. And here is the sneaky route. And I think what I found is the worst possible way of getting to the barrows. But at least I didn't have to start any unnecessary quests. And I only have to do it once, so it's not that bad. Now I've grabbed my book, here I am back at the temple with the last bits for the dwarf, where I can get my Death Talisman and re-enable the defense system and stop them summoning the Dark Lord. And that is it complete, the last quest I needed for Song of the Elves. All I have left to do is get the remaining 7 level 80s, and I can attempt the final quest. Here is my final tier list of all the quests that I've had to do, and Mourning Ends Part 2 obviously belongs in the worst quest in RuneScape tier. I don't think I have anything positive to say about it. Sheep Herder was at least short, but I still don't think it's worse than Rat Catchers. Luckily, it's going to be a really long time before I have to do that quest on this account. It's a bit of a shame that no quest got into the best quests in RuneScape tier. Will Song of the Elves make it? I'll let you know in a few episodes. And maybe I should have ranked the quests I did in previous episodes, as Waterfall Quest has a good chance of getting a slot in that top tier. Time for a quick summary of my stats and goals at the end of this episode. All quests complete. And ranging, thieving, fletching, crafting, attack, strength, prayer, hit points, and cooking all at their required levels, and pretty decent progress towards the rest of the skills. In the unlikely event of no more unplanned levels gained, I am looking at getting to Priff with a total level of 968. So, thanks all for watching, and sorry this episode was a little bit more delayed than usual. With all the leagues hype and a few other things going on, it took me a little bit longer to make this episode, but I am very excited to be able to shout out my very first YouTube member, Saria Melody. If you too want to show me a little extra support, then you can join them and unlock some custom emojis and get a little shout out at the end of the video. But the fact that you're still watching at this point is already enough support. So thank you all very much. And I'll see you next time, where I'll try and find some decent skilling methods for these remaining level 70s.